So I have to tell you guys, I got forwarded this particular article yesterday while I was mid live stream. Someone sent it in. They said, look at Carrie Smith's post, because Carrie Smith is the amazing co-host of Unsafe Space. She had tweeted about this, and someone chatted in while I was on a live stream saying, Carlin, you've got to look at Carrie Smith's latest post. And so I was, it was an impromptu stream. I was keeping it loose, and I pulled up the post, and I saw this glorious thing: pass an anti-racist constitutional amendment by Ibram Kendi, who is the author of one of the seminal works of anti-racism, which is How to Be an Anti-Racist. And, and I'm probably now going to have to read that book too, in addition to reading White Fragility, like you guys are trying to drive me insane. But I saw this article that Carrie tweeted out. This is actually an older piece. This is from back in October, and it's the first I'd heard of it, but this is... Guys, the reason I wanted to make a separate video on this specifically is this is actually one of the most terrifying things that I have seen in this entire affair. It really is. This is a truly, truly, truly terrifying proposition to pass an anti-racist amendment to the Constitution. This is straight out of Orwell, what they want to do. If you have not read 1984 recently, you need to go read 1984. I'm not joking. I don't care if you read it in high school. I don't care if you read it a few years ago. You need to go and read it now. The audiobook is wonderful. I have it on my device. I've listened to it many times. Do that as well. But we are living in what could be a prequel to 1984 right in front of us right now. It's funny. I'm reading Atlas Shrugged right now for the first time, and I had watched the kind of cheesy movies that got made out of it a couple years ago, but I was curious. I thought, will I see those movies differently today if I watched them today? And so I actually, in the past couple of days, have watched all 3 Atlas Shrugged movies with my husband, and we were watching the first one the other night, and he turns to me and he says, Carlin, why does this stuff sound crazy when it's said in the movie, but when people say it in real life, everyone just gets on board with it? And I said, that is a very good question, Victor. I don't know, because it actually does sound crazy in the movie. And yes, I do perceive those movies differently than I did a couple years ago. I thought they were awful a couple years ago. I was like, what is this nonsense? Why are conservatives obsessed with this? But I still think they're cheesy, but I appreciate them much more. And yes, I am still going to read the book, because you should always read the book. But it's 1,100 pages, guys. Give me a break. Anyway, back to this. This is my very definition of a nightmare right here. Passing this anti-racist amendment to the Constitution. And we're going to talk about why. We're going to read about what he wants to do, and I'm going to give you my little analysis. But before we do that, we have to do our typical housekeeping, guys. I'm really trying to grow the channel. I very much want to hit 100,000 subscribers by Election Day. I am absolutely on track to do it, but I need your help. If you like the content, if you like what I'm putting out, please consider subscribing to the channel, turning on your notifications, all that good stuff. You can also make sure if you think you're subscribed that you are still subscribed. But if you want other ways to support my channel, you can also support me on Subscribestar. Now, Subscribestar is a monthly donation to support my work and support my content, and I'm greatly appreciative for everyone who makes those monthly donations. Sometimes people ask me, is there a difference between joining your locals or joining your Subscribestar? It really is, you can join whichever one you like, honestly, and Subscribestar, if you're on there, you're supporting other content creators, it is a great option. But I do, in addition, oh my god, it's that kind of day already. But one of the perks of supporting me on Subscribestar is that you do get a shout out in one of my videos as a nice little thank you. So today I have a whole bunch of shout outs to give. I got my little list on the screen. I've got a shout out for PS, for Tom, for Julian, for Melissa, and to the random dude that just put a whole bunch of numbers in his name. So thank you so much for your support. I couldn't do it without you. I'm greatly appreciative. All right, let's dig into it. Pass an anti-racist constitutional amendment. And this is super short, but I have a lot to say. To fix the original sin of racism, Americans should pass an anti-racist amendment to the U.S. Constitution that enshrines 2 guiding anti-racist principles. Racial inequity is evidence of racist policy. That's principle number 1. Racial inequity is evidence of racist policy. They want that enshrined in the Constitution of the United States, and different racial groups are equals. The amendment would make unconstitutional racial inequity over a certain threshold, as well as racist ideas by public officials with racist ideas and public official clearly defined. It would establish and permanently fund the Department of Anti-Racism. This is literally Orwell, guys. This is literally Orwell. The Department of I'm going to get through this whole article before I start ranting, I swear. The Department of Anti-Racism, comprised of formally trained experts on racism and no political appointees, because God forbid we don't want to actually vote for people. The DOA would be responsible for pre-clearing all local and state and federal public policies to ensure they won't yield racial inequity, monitor these policies, investigate private racist policies when racial inequities surface, and monitor public officials for expression of racist ideas. It's the thought police. It's literally the thought police. The DOA should be empowered with disciplinary tools to wield over and against policymakers and public officials who do not voluntarily change their racist policy and ideas. So much Orwell in one paragraph. So much oh my, I can't even. I've been thinking about this all night. I still can't even with this. Okay, so where are the problems in this particular article? So first off, let's just knock out the big pink elephant in the middle of the room. This is not going to happen. There is no universe in which this is a realistic possibility. It is incredibly difficult to amend the Constitution of the United States. And thank you, Founding Fathers, thank you for making it so difficult to amend this document, because this is insanity. This is never going to happen. This is not a realistic proposal. I strongly suspect he doesn't even think this is a realistic proposal, because it is never going to happen ever. But let's just go through the issues that I have. Well, I have many issues, but racial inequity is evidence of racist policy. What racist policy? That still exists on the books today. What racist policy? I mean, you can't just make blanket statements like this. This is insane, because once someone glosses over that statement, they perceive it as acceptance. Oh, you have no issue with this, so you believe it's true. I do not believe that the United States has a plethora of racist policies that are still on the books today. And if they do have racist policies, and I'm not going to put out of the realm a possibility that some of those don't exist. I'm sure they do, especially in the South. I'm sure that there are still policies on the books that still exist that, are not good and should actually be repealed. There are processes to get those repealed that are not a constitutional goddamn amendment. All right. The different racial groups are equals. This is already in the Constitution. We don't need this. In fact, this is not, like set aside the Constitution for a second. This is in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Or as Joe Biden would say, the thing. We hold these truths, you know what I mean. No, this is already in the Declaration of Independence. This is what the founders set up. Now, they didn't set it up at a time when they were acting in accordance to that principle, but that principle is already enshrined in the founding documents of this country. And what does that document say? It says to create a more perfect union. I'm quoting like Joe Biden today. We are to create a more perfect union. Our union is not perfect. It will never be perfect. It is always a work in progress. But these ideals are what we're moving towards. That's the target. Okay? This is already there. We don't need this. The amendment would make unconstitutional racial inequity over a certain threshold. Who decides what the threshold is? How is it measured? Is it by geographic region? I mean, there's so many questions for this. Oh my God, so many questions. as a racist, as well as racist ideas by public officials. Now, at least they're saying they're going to define racist idea and public official, but who's going to do the definition? It would establish and permanently fund a Department of Anti-Racism comprised of formally trained experts on racism and no political appointees. So in other words, the people that are going to clearly define what racist ideals are and what public officials are people who have already been indoctrinated into this little cult. This is very literally a proposal to say, let us put our high priestess in the cult on a council that you cannot defund, that we give power over your lives. That is insane. But let's go back to this idea of naming it the Department of Anti-Racism, because this is probably the most Orwellian thing in this whole paragraph. If you have watched any of my white fragility videos, you have seen emphatically that anytime you hear anti-racism, what they really mean is racism. These are racist ideas. These are racist policies. Robin DiAngelo, in her book, admits, she flat out says that she is a racist and that her friends continue to forgive her racist ways because that was just the way she was socialized, and they're very patient with her when she says racist things. If you don't believe me, it's in the book. Go watch the videos I did on this because I literally show you where this is in the book. Now, I haven't read this dude's book yet. Obviously, I'm going to have to now. I really don't want to. I really don't. I'm gonna have to muster. I just slapped my microphone if that comes up on the video. I'm gonna have to muster the courage to read this book. It's gonna be a process. It's gonna be like when I did Cambo Frog, when I was doing an ayahuasca ceremony sometime. Cambo Frog is like, off topic, Cambo Frog is essentially a spiritual ceremony where they like light a little stick on fire and stab it into your arm, and it hurts like hell, and I really didn't want to do it, and then I worked my way up to it. This is kind of how I feel about anti-racist, like reading these anti-racist books. It's exactly like doing Cambo Frog, where I have to have a stick that's on fire shoved into my arm and then frog poison rubbed over it. Like, and I'm not making that up, by the way. That's actually less painful to me than these books. And the thing about Cambo Frog is, like, when you do it, you feel great afterwards. It sucks when you're doing it. It sucks real bad, I'm not gonna lie, but you feel amazing afterwards. When you read these anti-racist books, the entire purpose of these anti-racist books is to make you feel worse. Okay, let's keep going now that I've gone on the ultimate tangent of all time. The DOA would be responsible for pre-clearing all local, state, and federal policies. So you're basically putting this agency that is not staffed by political appointees, that can never be defunded, over every level of government. You have every freaking level of government, and then at the very top, the Department of Anti-Racism, which we now know is really code word for the Department of Racism, to ensure they won't yield racial inequity, monitor these policies, investigate private racist policies. So now this is not only about government, this is also about investing what private people are doing in their private businesses when racial inequities surface, and monitor public officials for expression of racist ideas. This is the thought police. The thought police. These people who have been indoctrinated into this cult are the ones that are going to define the racist ideas. They're going to come up with a very clear definition of that. And we know that these people never come up with a clear definition of anything that makes sense in any way. And even if they did come up with a clear definition, like a year later when they see that it doesn't suit their purposes, they're going to change the definition entirely to suit their purposes so they can go back and prosecute people for making an off-the-cuff tweet. You know, my God. The DOA would be empowered with disciplinary tools. What does that mean? What does it mean? What do you mean disciplinary tools? To wield over and against policymakers. He's talking about a government-funded department and giving them tools to wield against policymakers. I mean, and public officials who do not voluntarily change their racist policy and ideal. So in other words, bend the knee or you will feel the weight of our disciplinary tools. This is insanity. This will always be insanity. This will never happen. Oh my God. Like, this is why we need to keep fighting this, and this is why we need to keep speaking out against this. I'm not kidding, because these people right now have wormed their way into the public conversation. They're wreaking havoc on everything. And now they're saying, let's just enshrine it in the Constitution. Nothing could possibly go wrong with this plan at all. These are crazy people, and they should not be listened to. And now, here I'm going to do my last little bit, just my fundamental, my disclaimer on this. I believe there are important conversations that we need to have about race in this country. I believe there are issues related to, systems that were put in place in the past. Call it systemic racism if you want, but if a system gets put in place and then things are built on top of that system, like there are going to be functional things that we need to go back and rectify. I know systemic racism is like a trigger word for a lot of you, but I actually think that's a legit thing. I think there are nuanced conversations to be had in this area. Nonsense like this, nonsense like proposing an anti-racist amendment to the Constitution, this prevents those conversations from happening. If these people legitimately wanted good, positive change for the people they claim to serve, this would be the last nonsense that they would do, because this inhibits that conversation. They don't want that, though. You have to pay attention to people's behaviors when you're trying to assess what they really want, because people almost never tell you what they really want. You have to look at their behaviors and how they're acting and think about, what are those behaviors going to lead to? Is it going to lead to a more fair and just world, or is it going to lead to more racism? This is going to lead to more racism. No, 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 no.